Hello, VC vinyl community. It's Mazzy here. End of February, actually mid-February, I'm jumping ahead, but I'm late to the game because I only really jumped on for the first time 8 months ago, I think, or 8 or 9 months ago, and I posted 3, but I kind of didn't follow up, and I went into a different direction out in the world, just enjoying music, and since I'm self-employed, I don't have a lot of spare time. But, so I'm going to jump into this Vinyl Tag 2019, if you don't mind, if it's not too late. And there's a couple questions, obviously, I can't get into as much just because I'm not as experienced with this group as much and haven't followed as many people yet. I'm kind of jumping in, and hopefully it'll stick this time. I enjoy record collecting, obviously. If you saw a couple of my other videos, worked in the record business from 1973 to close to 1980 in San Francisco. Anyway, I'll go through this fairly quickly and enjoy it. Take care. Okay, best vinyl find in 2018. Well, I'm a big Beatle collector, and I haven't exposed and showed my whole collection yet, but of Beatles. But I have pretty much everything. That hit me when I was 10 years old, 1964. So that's you can figure how old I am. But I have multiple copies of all their albums in various formats. But the one thing I didn't have, or one of the few things I never got for some reason, was an original UK White Album top loader. And with all the White Album talk this year with the 50th anniversary and the reissues, I started looking for one. And I have a friend, my buddy Coleman, who we met in 1973 working at record stores in San Francisco, and we've been friends ever since. Found one for me. I was actually last fall at a record show, or last winter, a record show in Lake City, just north of Seattle. And I was at one of the tables of a friend of mine. Her name is Jen, and she does buying and selling as a thing. And she, out of the blue, she says, "So, is there some holy grail you're looking for?" And I had been talking to Coleman about a top loader for a long time, and you go on Discogs, and they're anywhere from $150 to $400 or $500, depending on the shape and everything. And I mentioned that, and literally, I walked away from her table. I get this phone message, almost like an urgent phone message. My phone was buzzing, but I didn't listen to it right away. And it was Coleman, who was in San Francisco at the KUSF record fair, and some guy there had a top loader, UK original, first pressing, for $75. He wasn't sure if it was good, but it looked pretty good, and so he did it. He went to a place in San Francisco, there's a little store that has the Sonic machine, and for $2.50 or $3, they'll do cleaning, and it sounds amazing. It's some crackling throughout it, which is to be expected, but anyway, here it is, UK top loader, and I'm not going to pull it all apart, but you know what it looks like. It's got the original black sleeves inside, yet we put the records in polyvinyl sleeves. But so this was a big deal, and thank you, my buddy. Thanks, Coleman, for finding this. But it was a great coincidence when that happened. Okay, shout out to other VC members. I'm afraid I don't have any yet that I would specifically call out, although I've been enjoying looking at a lot of more especially last weekend. Again, I haven't really caught up in probably the 2020 to 2030. I will get to know you people a little better and shout you out. But this is fun. It's fun being a part of this. Okay, the next one. What titles are you looking for to fill in your collection? Well, I have so much now, but I would like, there's several mono Coltrane albums. I have the mono reissue box set, and I have mostly stereo records that I bought from the 70s. Most of the Atlantic stuff, I'm sorry, not Atlantic. Anyway, the Coltrane stuff from the box set that came out on Rhino, which is mono, but as you might know, especially jazz freaks that know much more than I do. I enjoy the music, but I don't know all the historic details. But several of the mono original master tapes were burned in a fire at one of the Atlantic Records places some years ago. So those are not included in the box, but I'd love to find original pressings of those. I know they're pricey, and I'll stumble across them at some point. Okay, a cheap album that is really, really good. Well, it's fairly cheap, and I did one of my early post last year was about Ry Cooder, who's my favorite all-time guitar player. And Boomer's Story, you can actually find, I don't know, $5, $6, $7. I consider that cheap. It's not a dollar bin record, but maybe you can find it once in a while. But this is a record that everyone should have. It's friggin' amazing. My favorite guitar player. It's kind of bluesy, folky, swampy. There's a great version of Dark End of the Streets, and it's just a stunning record. It's got a great sound to it. The original Warner Brothers. Oh, this is actually, I forgot about this. This is a white label promo. So I have several copies. I have 2 or 3 of the original, including this one, which sounds amazing. But I also got the recent MoFi edition. I'm not a huge MoFi fan, I don't buy a lot of them, but it sounds incredible just because I love Ry Cooder, so I can't have enough Ry Cooder. Next question is, favorite side project album? I'm loosely saying this is a side project. George Harrison, Wonderwall, 1968 on the soundtrack he did. Actually, this is one of my top 3 George Harrison records. All Things Must Pass, probably Cloud 9, and this. I'm a huge fan, thanks to the Beatles, of Indian music, Ravi Shankar. I love Ravi's daughter, Anushka. I went to the concert for George, and it was probably one of the most emotional music experience I've ever had at the Royal Albert Hall. Anushka conducted, Ravi was there, a piece that Ravi wrote for George Harrison. But love this album. There's a song called Crying that's got a great Eric Clapton lick on it as well. But it's spacey, it's soundtracky, it's Indian, and it's, to me, a stunning record. I know some people don't get into this kind of international world music. In a way, George Harrison, I would say, brought world music to the world, to the pop world, introduced it to a wider audience because of the sitar and Ravi Shankar. Highly recommended. Most of you older folks probably know it, Beatle collectors know it, but I play this once a month. Gorgeous record. Okay, song uncharacteristic to a band. I just picked an album, and the album that I picked is Beau Brummel's Bradley Barn. And I guess, because it's very country, recorded at Bradley Owen's barn and recording studio. And this is 1968, so it just last year celebrated. And there was actually a great reissue of this with the expanded thing, basically what was found on the Rhino CD from about, 10 years ago. They had the expanded extra tracks and demo things. Great record. I guess you could technically say that they always had a country influence, and even back to Laugh Laugh, and those early songs had sort of a folky country thing. So maybe it's not so uncharacteristic, but wonderful record if you're into the kind of, now I think a lot of alternative country bands, Americana bands are really into this. It's one of those things, it was recorded the same year, or it came out the same year, and it might have just came out a few months before, but someone will write in the notes that I'm right or that I'm wrong, of Sweetheart of the Rodeo, which again is one of my favorite records, and obviously over the years became a cult classic and really kind of stiffed at the time. Us young folks didn't get country music that much then, so when they went in that cowboy direction, anyway, the Louvin brothers and all that. Anyway, okay, the next one is the last album I purchased. One of my favorite artists, Sam Phillips. Not the Sam Phillips, who worked with Elvis and Sun Records, but she's been around, she's been around 25, 30 years. Her first record was on Virgin Records, or at least her first. I think she started as a Christian artist, and then she was signed to Virgin, and because she was married to T-Bone Burnett for many, many years, maybe up to 10 years ago, give or take. T-Bone produced a lot of her records, but the Indestructible Wow on Virgin is an amazing record. Just beautiful. And Bikinis and Martinis, Martinis and Bikinis, also on Virgin, is a great record. And what's great about it, there's a lot of Beatle-esque stuff going on between T-Bone's production and the arrangements and Sam's writing. She's great, but she's been putting out records on her own for the last several years, and I bought this from her site. Actually, this is a signed copy by her. Just got it. I think it just came out in December, and I got it second week of third week of January, like 2 weeks ago. Probably the last record I got. Beautiful record. She's got a kind of folky sound, but amazing songwriter. Just an amazing voice. And trivia thing, for all those of you who know, obviously, the Die Hard movies, the third Die Hard movie with Jeremy Irons as Nemesis, that woman assistant that I don't think she says one word in the whole movie, she just has this great kind of semi-flat face that looks very Eastern European. That's Sam Phillips. And the director of that movie saw the cover, Martinis and Bikinis, and just liked her look and hired her because of that cover. A bit of trivia there. Okay, a great album with a bad cover. This is a comp, and it's I went from the Beatles, I pulled to my Beatles side just because this one always irked me. Rock and Roll. Horrible cover. Horrible packaging. Roy Kahara, sorry, who worked for Capitol, in-house designer. Coca-Cola, Americana. I mean, this is like, that should have been a Beach Boys record, right? 57 Chevy, jukebox. That's sort of American. It's not the British Beatles. It's got this metallic thing. It costs a little extra, but cheesy, 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 cheesy. Cheese and onions cheesy. Look at that. The Beatles with a Coca-Cola glass of Coke. I assume it's Coke. A cola. And on the other hand, it's a great collection. They're rockers together, so it's a great listen. Also, Love Songs, actually, with a better cover, the Richard Avedon photographs, is a great listen for the kind of softer, melodic side of the Beatles, and better cover, but a nice comp. So I'm not against their comps. Okay, this one, I bet you a lot of you older Pink Floyders will disagree with me, but the thing is, a bad album with a great cover. This is the record where Pink Floyd went Muzak-y, Digging Up the Dead. Love this cover, Hypnosis as usual. Amazing package. The texture is beautiful. The photography is beautiful. The art directing is gorgeous. You know, this is where they pulled the Richard Wright Dead tracks, I think, and they kind of overdub, which I'm not against that. I'm not a purist where you can't take from your past members and add to it and everything, but I thought it was a little kind of Muzak-y. It's mostly instrumental, which is fine. Maybe I should put this in a great album to fall asleep to, but I didn't do that. I did something else, an album I actually like. But anybody who watches this, if you disagree, write it there. We all have different tastes, but gorgeous cover, one of the best covers in the last few years. Snoozer. Mazzy says snoozer. PF, snoozer. Okay, blues album. I'm going to the blues folk thing, roll over, Elektra Records, and it's one of my favorite album covers ever. But it's Josh White's Empty Bed Blues. It's early in the morning here. I'm in Seattle. One coffee tripping over my lips. But look at that stunning, beautiful photograph. Sexy but tasteful, right? Josh White, if you don't have any of his records, you need them. Buy them. They're fairly inexpensive, I think, under $10 most of the time, maybe $15 in the big cities, but beautiful records, great sounding records. Empty Bed Blues, Mother on That Train, Bottle Up and Go, Blackwater Blues, Baby Blues. See, a lot of blues. How blue can you get? And cover design by William S. Harvey, who was the main art director designer for Elektra Records at the time. Designed all the early Doors records and most of those records. Little trivia thing, a side note, when I worked in a record store in the 70s in San Francisco, one of them was a record factory that I managed in the inner Sunset by Golden Gate Park. And for about a 6-month period, his son, this would have been in the 78, 77, 76, worked in our store for a while. And I really, at the time, really didn't know who William S. Harvey was. I think his name was Bill Harvey Jr.? I don't know. Anyway, that's just me showing off that. But it was really a cool guy. I think he was a designer, art director too. All right, I got to switch my page because I have my notes on a 2-page thing scribbled up last night. Earworm Song. I'm going with the song from the first Bee Gees record. I love the psychedelic poppy Bee Gees. Please Read Me. Whenever I have that in my car, that song, I have an iPad with Apple CarPlay, and that comes on, I repeat it 2 or 3 times. The texture of it, the harmonies of it, it's kind of a drone thing. Also a great cover Nina Simone did, Please Read Me, on their first album. You know, too bad we can't do snips of music here, but I guess you don't need it. It would take up too much time. You can go find it. Most of you guys and women maybe know it, but if not, Please Read Me. Put it on and crank it, okay? There you go. Next, historically important artists. There's so many, but I gotta go with Johnny Cash. Ring of Fire, just anything he's done. I only saw him once. I saw him at the Fillmore in San Francisco in the 90s maybe, with June Carter and his trio. And it was one of the most amazing shows. And it was actually, I'm trying to think, it must have been after the American series of records, or after the first couple came out, I think. It must have been. I can't remember, but you can look it up on shows that when they played the Fillmore San Francisco. Great place to see music, but there you go. Ring of Fire, Best of Johnny Cash, or one of the collections. I have a million. I have so much Johnny Cash. I have everything in Johnny Cash, pretty much. Not all on vinyl, but a lot on vinyl. Okay, album you own because of your parents. I remember being in my parents' car, going to some night thing at school. We did live down the peninsula. I grew up in San Francisco. We lived it for a while down in Menlo Park, California. Remember, it was a rainy night, and the radio was on, and Camp Granada came on. And, oh, unbeknownst to me, I didn't really know who he was, but my parents had, I think, his first album, My Son the Folk Singer. Typical thing that Jewish families had, like you had to have Alan Sherman, where basically, he's the Weird Al of his day. He invented Weird Al Yankovic. Fun albums. I actually have a Rhino CD box set of everything he did. You have to be in the mood, but it's really fun stuff. And I love this cover. I remember as a kid just staring at this cover in my parents' record collection. They had the console hi-fi in the living room, and that was it. My Son the Nut. Takes one to know one, right? Okay, we're going into dollar bin finds. Favorite dollar bin records, right? Am I in the right order? Okay. Great record. Jimmy Dean, Big Bad John. Wonderfully recorded, great country, minimal production, but great balls production. Good bass, good drums, good recording. Demonstration version, and for like $1, I think. And this one, look at this label. 6i. Gorgeous record. I mean, Big Bad John, it's got Smoke, 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 that cigarette. You guys know it from Commander Cody, Sleep at the Wheel. Got 16 tons. Pick it up. This is stereo one. It sounds great in stereo. I'm not a snooty mono person. I know I'm not putting down snooty mono people, because I like a lot of mono stuff. But I'm one, actually, just a little side thing. I prefer the original Sgt. Pepper in stereo, and everyone let the mono is like, you know, everyone goes gaga over the mono original Sgt. Pepper. I didn't like the reissue, the remix of Sgt. Pepper. I thought it was bloated and over the top, but I love the original. I just love that spatial thing, and I think that came out just a few months before I was bar mitzvahed, and it was a perfect thing for a 13-year-old to hear psychedelic stuff, living in San Francisco too. Okay, my 10-inch. No comment. I got this when I worked in record stores, and it did come out a version for sale. I don't remember why. There was a period of time where they're doing, this is the end of my record buying period, or record store working period. Joe Jackson's You Gotta Look Sharp, and it's got a little Look Sharp button, kind of probably a collector's item to a point, not probably terribly rare, but it's basically the same record on 2 LPs, 2 10-inch records, not LPs, but you know what I mean. Same songs, no extra tracks. So I guess the question is, why bother? But it's kind of a fun thing. I thought it was cool with the button. A great, great record, as most of you guys know. You probably should get this anyway. If you don't have it, look sharp. His first album. It was all over the radio, at least in the Bay Area at the time, and I'm sure everywhere else on FM radio. Anyway, Sunday Papers. Is she really going out with him? I asked that question all the time in those days. Believe me. What the fuck is that about? Is she really going out with him? Emphasize him. Okay, next. Favorite album to fall asleep to. Like others, I watched a few of these last night while I was with my iPad kind of dozing off. So I was dozing off to probably somebody here's a 2019 tag thing. Sorry, I won't mention any names because I don't even remember. I just kept viewing a bunch of them. And I kept thinking about that. Obviously we don't put records on because manual turntables. I have a Riga RP8, which just go around and around, and it's not in my bedroom, obviously. So sometimes I put my iPad on and I fall asleep to things, but a beautiful record in that vein of that kind of moodiness, but gorgeous. The modern jazz quartet with Laurindo Almeida. Kind of a Spanish influence, not unlike, I was going to say Sketches of Spain, not as orchestrated, but I love the modern jazz quartet. Obviously, John Lewis, Milt Jackson, pick their records up. They're just gorgeous. I like vibes, the sound of vibes in jazz, and they're kind of more moody compared to someone like, Cal Jader or something. It's more Latin, upbeat Latin things. But love this record. Go to sleep record, maybe. Even just a Sunday morning record. So I'm crossing over there. Okay. Oh, I went out of order, didn't I? I forgot. Oh, I got to go back to number 15. I'm sorry, out of order. I just want to shake things up. I'm a rebel. So, number 15, favorite double album. Obviously, the cliches, which are true. Exile on Main Street, 1999 by Prince, the Beatles' White Album, Derek and the Dominoes. But I'm going with two records that I just got this past year, and I think they kind of cross over in a few sections. But and this actually crosses over, so I'm going to merge this with records turned on by the VC that I learned from the VC, although I didn't learn them from the VC, so sorry, but I learned them from YouTube. A lot of times I'll watch Amoeba's What's in My Bag, artists, showing records, and they play snippets, and I fell in love with this record. I bought both volumes last year, even though one came out last year. I think one was the year before, a couple years ago, but the African Scream Contest albums. And these are Africana, reggae, soulful, bluesy, jump and jive records from the 60s, 70s into the 80s. Look at that cover. This is an amazing record. If you like something like just dance your ass off, upbeat, kind of with a little reggae, electric guitar, kind of funky recordings, you need these collections. This is the first one, so it's probably better, but I kind of like this one. And I just love that cover. Isn't that wacky? Probably one of my favorite cover of last year. So these are on Analog Africa. Great, great label, international label. But two highly recommended records. And these are my favorite double albums at the moment. So historically, okay, did I cheat there? Whatever. We're going out of order, sorry. But see, I'm cultural practitioner. Anyway. All right, 7-inch. Going back to after the 10-inch with Joe Jackson. 7-inch, I couldn't pick one, but I just picked one group over 1 year that I bought a bunch of their singles. When I worked in record stores in the 70s, probably 77. And that's the Sex Pistols. Love these singles. UK, I think there's one American in here. God Save the Queen, right? Great, great, great. I actually saw their last show ever, 1977 or 78, I'm blanking out right now. Someone will write it down. At Winterland in San Francisco. Terrible show. They sounded great. They were horrible. I mean, they sounded terrible. They were horrible. They were... Anyway, but it was great that I went to the last Sex Pistols show. Interesting how San Francisco breaks up bands in a way. Sex Pistols played their last show there. The Beatles played their last show there. Throbbing Gristle played their last, if you know them, played their last show. I think there's a couple others that just kind of, oh, the band, The Last Waltz. I was at The Last Waltz too, played their last show there. So as that band with Robbie Roberts and the original members. So I think that's it. Favorite album, favorite experience, any advice for other members? Just have fun. Let's all loosen up and have a good time. I mean, I love watching this stuff, and but I don't know. Music is art, and art is music, and you know what's better musically is so subjective. So anyway, thanks again for inviting me into your homes and into my record room downstairs, and hopefully I'll make more of these, and you can see more of my collection. Happy New Year. I'm late to the party, but still, I hope you enjoyed it.